Something happens between the ages of 39 and 44 that's almost impossible to explain to someone who hasn't felt it yet. It's not depression, it's not burnout, though it can look like both. It's closer to the feeling of like wearing a coat that fit perfectly 10 years ago and now, without any obvious reason, fits wrong. Life is okay, the relationships are okay, career is okay, and something in the person wearing it knows with an uncomfortable clarity, and it's uncomfortable exactly because it's so clear that this is not it, that something essential has been missing, that the structure that was built carefully, um, sometimes at significant cost, was built for a version of this person that is no longer the whole story. This is not a psychological crisis, it's a structural event. And the name for what's causing it is Uranus. Uranus takes approximately 84 years to complete one full orbit, which means the opposition, the point at which it sits directly across the sky from where it was at birth, arrives at roughly 40 to 42, once in a lifetime. It doesn't return. In the astrological tradition, Uranus is the planet of liberation, disruption, and the authentic self, rebellion, not the constructed self, but the authentic one. The part of a person that exists underneath the adaptations made for survival, approval, belonging, and success. It doesn't like any of these. Uranus governs what cannot be permanently suppressed, what has been waiting, with very degrees of patience for the conditions under which it can finally move. The opposition is the moment when that force reaches its maximum distance from its natal position and turns back. It's confronting the life that was built from the outside, not to destroy it, but to demand that it make room for what was left out and what's really important. This is where Uranus and Saturn, which we looked at in episode 2, operate differently on a life. Saturn likes to test what was built for structural integrity. It asks, does this hold? Is this real? Is this yours? Uranus doesn't test the structure, it doesn't care. It presses against it from the inside of the person. It asks a different question. Is there enough room in this life for the parts of you that were never given permission to exist? Those are not the same questions, and they require different responses. Saturn asks for honesty about what was built. Uranus asks for courage about what was left out. What I watched happen in people moving through the Uranus opposition follows a recognizable pattern, recognizable only once you know what you're looking at. The first signal is usually restlessness that has no obvious source. The life is objectively fine. There is nothing wrong that can be pointed at and fixed, and yet the person cannot settle, cannot find satisfaction in the things that previously gave them satisfaction, cannot make the contentment that should logically be available actually land. This restlessness is Uranus pressing. It's not a pathology, it's a condition. Pressure from a force that has been patient long enough. The second signal is the arrival of desires that feel disproportionate, inconvenient, or even embarrassing. The person who has built a stable life suddenly wants to make art. The successful professional suddenly wants to live somewhere completely different. The committed partner suddenly finds themselves drawn to a version of their life that has nothing to do with the version they inhabit. These desires aren't signs of dysfunction, they're the authentic self making its appearance. What was suppressed to build the expected life is now declaring itself. The third signal, and this is the one that causes the most damage when misunderstood, is the impulse to blow everything up, to leave the relationship, quit the job, move to another country, start over entirely. This impulse feels like liberation, and sometimes it is, but more often it's the ego's dramatic response to the Uranus rather than the intelligent use of it. The force is real. The all or nothing response to it usually is not what the force is actually asking for. What Uranus is asking for, in most cases, is not destruction of the structure that's been built over the years. It's the expansion of it, room for what was left out, a relationship that has space for both people's authentic needs rather than only the needs that were declared acceptable, a career that has room for the capacities that were suppressed because they didn't fit the job description, a life that is large enough to contain the actual person rather than only the version of the person that was built for external approval or consumption. The people who navigate Uranus opposition well are not the ones who blow everything up. They're the ones who can hold the pressure of what wants to move without either suppressing it again or acting on it impulsively. Um, that requires a quality of tolerance for discomfort that not everyone has developed by 40, but it can be developed. And the opposition gives approximately 2 to 3 years in which to develop it. What shifts when the Uranus opposition is understood rather than simply survived? The first shift is in the relationship with the desires that arrive. When the opposition is understood as a structural event, as Uranus doing exactly what it does at exactly the time it does it, the desires that surface stop being evidence of ingratitude, rebellion, instability, or moral failure. They become information, um, clear information about what was left out of the structure and what the authentic self has been waiting to express. That reframe alone changes everything about how the period is inhabited. The second shift is in what the person builds on the other side of it. The people who move through the opposition consciously, who use the pressure as information rather than reacting to it as a crisis, tend to build something in their 40s that has a quality their 30s didn't have. More integrated, it's more genuinely theirs, less performed for an audience whose approval they no longer need with the same urgency. The Uranus opposition, when used correctly, produces exactly what it promises: liberation, not from the life, but from the parts of the life that belong to someone else's idea of who this person should be. The intense Aquarius Uranus placement, which some people carry natally, means this liberating, disruptive energy is not just a transit, it's a permanent frequency in the person's design. For someone with a strong natal Uranus in Aquarius, the opposition isn't the only time this force is active, it's the peak of a cycle that has been running since birth. The whole life tends to move in sudden shifts rather than gradual progressions. The periods of apparent stability are often consolidation phases before the next disruption. Understanding this and treating it as design rather than a dysfunction or a malfunction changes the entire relationship with how one's life moves. And in community, which is the thread we'll follow later this week, Uranus in Aquarius has a specific signature. It sees what structures are obsolete before others do. It feels the constraint of systems that have stopped serving their function with a particular intensity. That perception is a capacity. It becomes destructive only when it's expressed as restlessness or rebellion, rather than as the intelligence it actually is. The life that stops fitting isn't broken, it's too small. That's not a verdict on what was built. It's just information about what needs to grow. Uranus doesn't arrive to destroy, it arrives to insist on the full person. That insistence, met honestly, is one of the most useful forces a life can move through. I'll see you next time.